Welcome to my video on exposing film by eye. The goal of exposing film by eye is not to nail every exposure, but to provide you with a framework for adequate exposure so that you can focus more intently on composition, working the scene, and anticipating the subject. First of all, we need to eliminate the variables. Here are some of the variables we need to consider when exposing film by eye. Choice of film, shutter speed accuracy, lens aperture accuracy, environmental factors, choice of developer, base fog, and latent image degradation. While it may be impossible to eliminate all of them, we can do our best to reduce them to the bare minimum. Now I'd like to present you with two scenarios. In the first scenario, we have shooter A. Shooter A is shooting a film that performs slower than box speed. Their camera hasn't been CLA'd in many years, so the shutter speed and lens aperture accuracy is off. What they believe to be a sunny day actually has some light haze in the sky. They choose a developer that does not yield the maximum film speed. They're shooting expired or incorrectly stored film, and they develop the film months after exposure, potentially subjecting the film to latent image degradation. Now let's take a look at shooter B. Loaded in their camera is a professional grade film that performs at or close to box speed. Their camera has been recently CLA'd, so their shutter speed and lens aperture accuracy is within tolerance. The sky is completely clear of any haze or cloud. They choose a developer that yields the full film speed. They're using fresh film off the shelf, and they develop the film immediately. Shooter A is going to end up with negatives that are poorly exposed, while shooter B will have negatives that are properly exposed. Shooter A, understandably, is disappointed with the results and goes back to shooting with their light meter, whereas shooter B, pleased with the results, is likely to continue exposing by eye. Shooter B eliminated all of these variables to the best of their ability, so they have the best chance of success moving forward. The next thing we need to do is to define your aesthetic goal. Your aesthetic goal is dictated by your taste in shadows. If you like stark inky blacks with little to no texture, then your sunny reference will be quite different to someone who likes full, open shadows. For example, here are some of my photographs shot on Ilford FP4. As you can see, the shadows are quite full and detailed. Next, we need to calibrate your sunny reference. My recommended method of calibration is bracketing exposures in a sunny environment. Here is one such scene that I found when testing Kentmere Pan 400. This is the camera I used for the shoot, a Nikon F and 50mm lens. Here we have my Sunny 16 exposure exposed at f/16 500. The idea of the Sunny 16 rule is to set your aperture to f/16 and your shutter speed to the closest number that matches the box speed rating of your film. If you were shooting Ilford FP4, you would be shooting at f/16 125. In my case, I was shooting Kentmere Pan 400. So I set my shutter speed to 1/500th of a second. Now let's take a look at the negative. Ultimately, this is how we're going to judge our exposure. Film scans and prints can be misleading, so it's best we judge from the source. On this particular day, I did not have my tripod, so you will see some variation in framing and sharpness. As you can see on the right of the screen, we've got 6 different exposures, all bracketed one stop apart, ranging from -1 to +4 from the Sunny 16 reference. Let's punch in on the shadows. We are looking at the -1 exposure. What I'm looking for, and this is important, is the difference in density between the film base and the deepest shadows within the image. Now, if I isolate the film base, in the top right of the screen, which is the histogram, you're going to see a narrow, tall peak. It is narrow because it's a single density of the film base plus fog. Expired film, or film that was incorrectly stored, may show a greater density due to an increase in base fog. If I then select the area of deepest shadows within the image and take a look at the histogram, nothing has changed because there is no information recorded in that area. Notice that peak in the histogram hardly move at all as I toggle the shadows on and off. These are known as thin shadows and are primarily a function of exposure, not development. More exposure leads to greater shadow density, and more development leads to greater highlight density. Now let's move on to the Sunny 16 0 reference, and while I do so, keep an eye on that peak. 0, -1, 0. And remember, you don't need scans or darkroom prints to do this. All you need are the developed negatives and a source of light. Now let's move on to the +1. Shadows on, off, on, off, on. You can see a definite difference. Now let's move on to the +2 exposure. +1, +2. Take a look at that peak. +2, +1, +2. It's not until the +2 exposure that we're beginning to see the shadows separate from the film base. Now let's move on to +3. Keep an eye on that histogram. The shadows peak has completely separated from the film base peak. If the shadows and the film base are part of the same peak as they were in -1, 0, and +1, then the shadows are not going to be as clean as they could be, because the film base is the noise floor of the medium. At +4, the shadows have grown in density even further. Now let's go back to the positive image. I've adjusted the black point, the white point, and the midtone point of each image to match each other as closely as possible. -1, sunny 16, +1, +2, +3, +4. Let's punch in on our shadows. At -1, the shadows look quite noisy and a little thin. At 0, I can see more detail. +1, more detail. +2 is looking great. +3 is looking great. And so is +4. In order to better understand what's happening in the shadows, I've created a levels adjustment layer so I can boost the midtones and reveal the detail, like so. At -1, the shadows are extremely noisy. There's no real detail happening in this area. In our sunny 16 reference, we can begin to see more detail, but still a lot of noise. At +1, there's less noise and more detail, looking good. At +2, the shadows are looking really clean now. +3 is more of the same, and +4 has as much shadow detail as you would want from this image. Cycling through with the shadows lifted, -1, 0, +1, +2, +3, and +4. So now it begs the question, what would be my sunny reference? The +2 and +3 exposures provided me with enough detail in the shadows for the kind of images I want to create. Exposing at +4 for me feels unnecessary because we're just trading speed for no real advantage. If we directly compare the +3 exposure against the sunny 16-0 reference, you can immediately see how much more shadow detail we're getting in the +3 exposure. As for me, I would calibrate my sunny reference to +3 for a high dynamic sunny scene like this to ensure the cleanest, most full shadows possible. Now that I've calibrated my sunny reference, we can move on to creating an exposure model. The sunny 16 model, while providing a good framework to start with, is rather one-dimensional as it only deals with the luminance of a scene, not the dynamic range. With the film, camera, lens, and developer that I'd use for this test, my reference for a normal sunny scene is sunny 8. If there are deep shadows within the scene, I'll give it an extra stop of light. If there are no shadows within the scene, I'll reduce a stop of light. But in all three situations, I'm guaranteed to have my shadows separated from the film base. Now, what does a low dynamic, sunny scene look like? Surely, if it's sunny, there are hard shadows which causes high dynamic range, right? Not necessarily. Let's say I used a longer focal length and framed only this part of the scene. In that case, there would be very little benefit to exposing beyond the sunny 16 or +1 reference. Hence why my exposure model with the DRM places a sunny low dynamic scene at +1, sunny 11. If you have followed all of the steps in this video, you will have successfully calibrated your sunny model for your particular set of variables. Hope this helps. See you next time.